Hey, ladies, you are in for such a treat today. I had the most amazing conversation with fashion and lifestyle influencer Lauren Valli. Lauren started blogging 4 years ago as a creative outlet that helped her explore fashion while she went to school for web design. She then has worked with top brands such as Neutrogena, Leela and Lavender, and Kroger. You may see glimpses of her rescue dogs and husband Matt on Instagram, wine in hand, ready to watch whatever season of The Bachelor is airing. She loves Jesus and lives by the motto, work hard, play hard. Be sure to tune in for the entire episode. Yes, we talk fashion and blogging and all amazing, beautiful things, but Lauren really shares her story here and the lessons learned from what wasn't the best of times. You are not going to want to miss anything in this episode. Be sure to listen all the way through. Let's go.
Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified life coach, mom of four, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in. Let's get started.
Hey, Lauren, I am so glad that you joined me today here to have a conversation and hang out on the podcast. Welcome.
Hello, Jen. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
And I am so glad that we finally found time to sit down and talk. I know we both are very busy people.
Yes.
Doing all the things.
That's an understatement.
I'm sure, though, that the ladies listening, some of them might be like, Lauren, who's that? Would you just take some time and tell us about yourself?
First of all, Jen, thank you for having me. I am so excited that we found time to actually do this.
Yes.
In all this craziness of the last few months. But I am essentially what you would call an influencer or a fashion blogger, whichever term you prefer. There's a little bit of debate out there. But basically my job is to come on social media and share my finds, share my style, and share my life. My husband, Matt, who is absolutely amazing, and my two dogs who keep us very entertained and very, very busy. And that's what I do. And I love it. I love sharing my life with all the people out there on Instagram and the social media world. So I love it.
I love that you do it because that's actually really how we met, was like virtually. Even though we could have met in person, we met virtually, and it was because other people that I know, of course, shared something about you. And I'm like, who is this fashionista? I'm going to use that word. I'm like, this chick is like amazing. I can't put jeans and a t-shirt on and look the same way you do in it. I just can't do it. I'm okay with it. I've resolved that that's just how it is. But I love that you find a way in the simplest things. Recently I saw you with freaking like 1984 hair clips.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Girl,
yes.
you pull off the plastic hair clip like nobody's business.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. I was channeling my 90s inner like Friends vibe, Rachel from Friends.
Oh, yes.
That is what I was going for.
Well, you won. You totally did. And I'll just say out loud, I had this impression that you literally like came out of the womb fashionable. Like you just, because you are this expert, like you just put things together. I'm like, why don't I think of that? Like, that's so freaking cute. And what I learned from you that I'd love you to talk about a little bit is that's actually not the case. How did you get into this world of fashion blogging and styling and influencing?
Well, Jen, it's so funny that you say that because I was not fashionable. And when I say I was not fashionable, I thought I was fashionable. And I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And I would see these other girls, and, I'm the oldest child. So I have a younger sister who is 5 years younger than me. And my parents were older. So my mom, when she had me, was 35. So I didn't really feel like I had anyone in my life to kind of look up to for fashion, to understand, how do you put this together? Like, I didn't know how to do that. So I just took it upon myself to start like researching, and we have the internet, which has so many resources. And so I just started investing and taking time to learn about brands and trends. And I just decided I was going to learn how to basically dress cool. Like I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be a cool girl. I mean, and this is probably in like high school when I was trying to figure out my life. And after a little bit of time, when I was starting to get this knowledge like under my belt, a lot of my friends would be like, Lauren, like, where can I find something like this? Or you always know where to find, XYZ. And so I started realizing like I should use this somehow in like my business, or like have a business, or how can I utilize all this knowledge that I've kind of like gained over the last few years. And this was before influencing was a thing. So this was way back when no one knew what an influencer was on social media, but there were these bloggers who would just share like their style. And a lot of them were actually models and actresses as well. It was like this dual thing to get exposure. And I was like, I could do this. And so I just decided to do it.
Oh my gosh. I love it that all the work you put into it, I get to reap all the benefits. I mean,
that's the goal.
All I have to do is show up on Instagram, go to your page and be like, how do I put this together? What looks cute today? And that's not just what you're wearing, because I love that you've brought in like home decor into your fashion. And that's always where I'm like, if Lauren went to Target, she's going to post about it and I can get over there and find some cute decorative thing for my house for whatever season it is.
Oh, yes, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's so cool. And I love how it came from a place of desire for yourself and you turned it into something that really does help others. And it helps others like me who have daughters who are like, I'm so not hip to the jive. See, I just said something that my teenagers would be like.
You just said jive.
I said jive. Okay, well, we're going to move on. But I said, I talk like this and I dress like that. I mean, I had to learn makeup kind of like how you have learned fashion and all of that. I didn't have a mom who did any of that stuff. I mean, girl, I had the line from, my jawline to my neck that looked like this stark line. It was so bad. I mean, any ladies listening, you know what I'm talking about, the line. I mean, it was so bad. If no one ever showed you or taught you how to do these things, right, you were kind of left to figure it out.
Yep.
Thankfully, we have you, and there are some benefits to the social media world, and we can go on and see clothes that are cute and fun and relative and still modest and yet feminine, and you look, I don't know, it sounds so cliche, but you just look pretty, Lauren. You just look pretty.
Thank you, Jen.
And you're wearing a freaking plastic clip and you look pretty. I'm like, girl, I can't get over it right now. I mean, and that's just one thing, and it just popped in my head because I'm thinking, gosh, my mother tortured my hair with those things and you look so good. Anyway, okay. I don't want to go on a tangent about banana clips or anything right now. I don't want to do that.
So funny.
But I really do love that it came from this place of a desire for you to learn for yourself, and yet you turned it into something for everybody else. And I know for you started off working in, a retail store, right? This fashion and all of this. And when the pandemic, the lockdowns, whatever word we want to use for 2020, the craziness that hit, you ended up at home, not working because the retail stores were closed, the place where you were working. And then you kind of took a big leap in doing this full time.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So it was right in the thick of the pandemic. So many people, were being told to stay home. And of course, we were under that as well. But what ended up happening was I was furloughed, and it was a furlough that lasted 4 months. So at the end of that 4 months, my position actually was terminated. I was working full time, and that position was terminated, but they did want me to come back. So they offered me something part-time, but all the while I was at home for 4 months, I was working on my business, and I just decided I have all this time at home. What better way for me to use my time than to invest it in my blog and be on social media? And so over that 4-month period, I just decided to treat it like it was my full-time job. Like this is my day job. And at the end of the 4 months, I decided, you know what, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. And so I declined that other offer for a part-time position. And I just decided to blog full time and haven't looked back since. And I think that it was the best decision that I could have made.
Oh, girl, it's paying off. I love it. I'm curious because I've been at a crossroads before in my career many, many, many moons ago. And I have to say, it was a crazy decision that I made. And I am so grateful I had a husband by my side who thought it was crazy, but also was really supportive. I'm curious how that showed up because we had only been married oh gosh, probably less than 2 years when I made this crazy career change. And I know you and your husband have only been married 3 years this year, right? Coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yep, coming up in May.
yeah. So how did that conversations and how did that go with having him by your side for that?
So the funniest part about it is that my husband is so supportive. So he has walked through so many things with me. And the first year of our marriage was honestly super challenging. And he's my best friend. And so anything that I bring to him, I know he's going to hear me out, but it doesn't mean he's not going to like question it. Of course,
Mm,
right? If
mhm.
it sounds crazy, he's going to be like, that sounds totally crazy. Like, girl, what are you talking about? And so I remember I walked into his office and like our office at home, and he was just sitting there, and I was like, so I think I need to blog full time. And he just looked at me like I had two heads and was like, what are you talking about? Like, we can't do that. And I think it was just this moment of, okay, he's going to hear me out and we're going to talk it through like we always do. And at the end of the day, we both came to the same decision that it was the right thing to do. But I think it's having that open communication to say, hey, this sounds a little bit crazy and I'm going to tell you how I really feel. But at the end of the day, we both kind of came to terms with the fact that it was great and he loved having me home more. And there was just a lot of other benefits as well, especially because it was right in the middle of 2020. We didn't know what was going to happen,
Yeah.
right? We were all kind of in that same situation. So I just think him hearing me out and taking the time to listen to something, even though it sounded crazy, was exactly what I needed.
Mm. Yeah, and I wanna circle back because you touched on something that I'd kinda like to go there is your first year of marriage was not the rainbows and roses and sparkles and unicorns that people want it to be or think it should
Mm-hmm.
be or, put these
Right.
expectations on. You guys kinda had a rough start. Would you mind sharing a little bit about, what that was like for you leading up to, being married and kind of into that first year?
Of course. So essentially, kind of to make a long story short, my mom was in the hospital a few weeks leading up to our actual wedding day. So a few months before that, she was starting to kind of get sick, and it wasn't clear what was going on. She was just having a lot of pain. Sitting down, even driving in the car was painful. And so we just had no idea what was going on. We thought maybe it was something with her spine, something where maybe a nerve was being pinched, who knows. And so within the span of a few months, we discovered that she actually was having a resurgence of cancer based on the fact that she had breast cancer 5 years before that. And so 5 years previous, she had a mastectomy and everything went extremely well. Honestly, it went so well. I don't even really remember it being stressful at that time. She had the mastectomy. She did not have any chemotherapy whatsoever. And she was just fine. And it was like, oh, I have my mom back, done. And what I think happened was she never went back to get checked. And over that course of 5 years, there must have been some other cancer in her body that was not treated. And so a few months before our wedding, those cancer cells were just becoming more and more active in her body. And by the time that we discovered what was happening, it was too late.
Mm.
And she had several tumors in her body, one on her hip bone, a few lesions in her lungs, on her spine, and then what ended up being the one tumor that they could not successfully treat was a tumor that was on her skull, and it was pressing on her brain. And so just 2 weeks after my husband and I got married, she ended up passing away. So no, it was not unicorns and rainbows and all of that stuff, which I expected it to be. And little did I know at that time that that's not what it was going to be.
Wow. My listeners know, and I know you know how much of an advocate I am for women's health and breast health and my own journey that I've shared on here, and you know my story. So I just
Mm-hmm.
want to take a moment out and just remind women that, those checks can be scary. We all worry about but what if I hear something? That's kind of the point,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of why we why we go do this, because we
Right.
need to know ahead of time. We need to not let those things sit. And there's such
Right.
beauty in taking, a beautiful lesson from something that at the time is definitely not beautiful and not feeling good. Like you said, I know your mom was in the hospital when you got married, and you did get married. You got to see her that day.
Mm-hmm.
I know you and your husband went on a great honeymoon, and we've exchanged honeymoon stories. We both have some
Yes.
doozies there. I mean, you've got a guy with no hand. I have a dead body. I feel like I trump you. I've not shared that story here on the podcast, but
Oh, you
the
need
dead body
to.
story. We're not going to go into hands, but I tell you what, there's some stories we have swapped about our honeymoons. But I know when you got back, things kind of changed for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, our honeymoon was absolutely incredible. It was a little bit over a week in Costa Rica. And at that point, I think I just needed a vacation.
Yeah.
So it was honestly exactly what we needed. And just coming back though to real life, boy, what a punch in the face.
Mm.
Like I just felt like I got sucker punched the moment that I got back. And unfortunately, during our trip, there was no improvement with my mom in her condition. And so by the time that we got back, she was more in a coma like state. She wasn't responsive. And so just about 2 weeks after we got married, so just a week after we got back, she ended up passing away. And, it's just not what you expect during your first, few months of being married. And you expect, everyone says, oh, the honeymoon phase. Like I did not feel like I got a honeymoon phase. The honeymoon was the honeymoon phase.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did not get an additional honeymoon phase after that, because all of a sudden it turned into I'm mourning while at the exact same time trying my best to celebrate being newly married and finally getting to be with my husband. I mean, we dated for 4 years, so we were so excited to finally be married and be living together. And so it just was not what I expected. And honestly, I just felt robbed. Like I felt robbed. I wanted that sweetness, that rainbows and butterflies, unicorns, all the things. First year, of marriage with my husband, where we just get to focus on each other. But honestly, I wasn't focused on that. I tried, but I was so overwhelmed with grief and just overwhelmed with how fast everything had moved with losing my mom, that it just totally overcame me. And I felt like I kind of got to a dark place, to be honest.
Lauren, there's so much power in that statement that you said of how you felt robbed, that you can see that you can mourn and be sad, but there was something taken from you more than even your mother, but this experience, this year, this transition into being a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Wow. Wow. So how did that look for the two of you? I mean, I'm thinking, I know I had a rough first year, nothing like this. And I'm thinking about all the ways I wish things could have been different for the two of us, and I can imagine there's some of that for you too. What did it look like within the context of your relationship early on?
Matt, my husband, I mean, he had to literally be my rock. I felt like from the moment we said our vows, he was literally having to basically come to terms with those vows that he just made and actually do it in real life,
Mm.
because real life hit hard. And for me, it was every day, it was just kind of a struggle. I felt like I was on the struggle bus every day.
Mm.
And he just really had to come alongside of me and help me through it to say, it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to feel all the feelings right now. And I hate feelings. And so I had to learn how to walk through my feelings and be okay with the mourning and the sadness and the overwhelming emotions that I was having. And at the same time, I was actually having a lot of anxiety.
Mm.
And I'd really never struggled with anxiety up until that point. And I think I just became gripped with fear that, oh, if this could have happened to my mom, then something could happen to me, or something could happen to Matt, or something could happen to someone else close to me that I love. And I felt so out of control. Like I felt like I have no control. And it just led to so much anxiety that, Matt, he didn't know what he was coming home to, if I was going to be happy, if I was going to be sad, crying, if I was going to be telling him, I feel really anxious right now and I just need you to be with me. I mean, he kind of had to hold it together. And it's unfortunate that he had to do that.
Mm.
And I think I struggled with guilt for a long time because I felt like I didn't give him the first year of marriage that I wish that I could have. And that's a hard thing to process.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so real. This is so, I think, relatable, whether no matter what the event is that occurs in our life, that these feelings that you experienced are normal. They are absolutely valid, but when you're in them, it doesn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know you during this time, and knowing you over this last year, in what's been, a much different place for you. There had
Mm-hmm.
to be something that got you to this place. You and your marriage. I get to see you and your husband, interacting and together, and I would never have known the story had you not shared the story. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious what it took to get from that place, that first year that was not what you wanted it to be, to where you guys are now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I wish that I could say, this is what I did, and boom, it was just better.
Mm.
And, but that's not true. It took probably about a year for me to just spend time processing through what I was feeling and literally just grieving. It took time. I would say the first year is probably the hardest. I think whenever you experience loss, I think that first year is the most gut wrenching. And so the first year for me was I was just trying to get by and truly experience these feelings that I was having and work through them. I mean, it took work. And whether that was through, reading a book that was, helping me walk through loss, talking to a friend, obviously, of course, talking to my husband, letting him in on what I was feeling, being vulnerable with him, praying. I have an amazing church and community that's, around me. And so they, of course, were super supportive during that time. I mean, I couldn't have done it alone, but it took work to get to a place where I felt like I had healing. And you don't just arrive at that place. It takes intentionality.
Oh, you are hitting all the points. I love this so much, Lauren, that you had to do the work, right? Like there is an element for you, but there's also the need for community. And you said something that I just want to highlight, that you had to allow your husband into those thoughts, into the place. They're not pretty
Mm-hmm.
ones. They weren't like,
No.
there was definitely not a unicorn in those thoughts at all. There was nothing pretty about it, but you allowed him in. And having been someone who didn't allow their husband into some dark places on thoughts, and the other side of that was not healthy for me, to
Mm,
see that you did that can come from just a relationship, right? Like you said, you have people in a community and your husband. There's also some people might need therapists and coaches
mm-hmm.
and a higher
Absolutely.
level of help to get to
Yes.
that place. The other thing you highlighted was time. It took time. I think so often, especially in our culture today, we want to like get there, like get to the
Oh, of
end.
course.
Yeah,
Yep.
just arrive. Like, tell me
Just
the magic
instant.
formula. Yeah, right? Like, I just want to get there, like,
Yes.
boom, done. And that's not how healing, grieving, or processing your thoughts, that's not how it works.
Right. Oh, and I had to learn that the hard way.
Mm.
And I am the person who wants instant. And let me tell you, there was nothing instant about it. And I think sometimes we encounter obstacles or issues that we think, I'm just going to go around this. I'm going to tiptoe around and
Mm.
I'm going to make it to the other side. But what I've learned is there are just situations where you cannot tiptoe around it. You can't somehow, transport yourself from one side to the other. You have to walk through it.
Oh.
And that is the only way to come out on the other side a healthier, better person. And it's because you did the work, you walked through the hardest parts. And when you make it out to the other side, you're like, I did it. Like, I survived this.
Yeah, yeah. And I really want to reiterate, you didn't have to do it alone. And just that anyone's
Right.
listening, you don't have to walk through things alone. Whether it is you have a community and you need to draw on that community, you have a spouse or a loved one or a family member that's close enough to you that you can draw on, but you might need to go outside of what's in that
Mm-hmm.
community of yours, and maybe you need a therapist, that you are at that
Yes.
level where you need to bring in professional help. But maybe you're not
Mm-hmm.
needing a therapist, and this is where I love the work that I do. You might need a coach, whether you need a life coach,
Mm-hmm.
you might need someone who specializes in the area you're struggling with. Obviously,
Right.
I bring these women in to work with me as their coach because they've been dieting for years. They have negative self-image. They beat themselves up about what they eat every day. They have that guilt and shame you talked about, but for very different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And walking alongside them to get them to that other place. It takes time and it takes work and it takes being intentional. All the things that you highlighted here is exactly what I get to do every day walking alongside
Mm.
women. And I love that you see that's the process. Like, that's the process to get through anything hard, anything that shifts and changes really your entire life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So, with all that being said, Lauren, how are you now? Where are things for you right now with your marriage and your thoughts and your journey?
Honestly, Jen, I'm so happy to be able to tell you that things are so much better. It gets better. For anyone who's listening that's like, does it actually get better? It does.
Mm.
There were so many days where I didn't think that I could feel normal
Mm.
and feel like I was in a good place. And that is where I'm at. I'm so much more, I will say, normalized, if that's okay for me to say that, where my emotions aren't, totally out of control. And it's because of walking through that journey that now I'm on the other side and I can look back and say, wow, I feel whole again. And, Matt and I think our marriage got so much stronger because of all the things that we've been through together. And I mean, 2020, we survived that together.
Amen,
Uh,
sis.
and I'm just so excited to see what happens next. And I'm truly just grateful that I have the opportunity to be doing what I'm doing and be on social media and almost just be an advocate where it's like people think everyone's lives look perfect.
Mm.
And let me tell you, they're not. My
Mm.
life is not perfect. I'm telling you, I'm a healthy person now because of what I've walked through, and I'm so thankful that I'm on the other side of all that crap, because that's what it was. But my life is not perfect. It's good. But you might look at me on social media and say, oh my gosh, she is the perfect this, whatever. It's not true.
I love it. I love Instagram filters. I freaking love them so much. It's crazy how much I love them. And I feel like this right here is the Instagram filter we need. What you see out there is not the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good, Lauren. That's so, so good. I mean, to know what you've walked through and then what you're doing is amazing to me. It's freaking amazing. It really is. And I feel like you are authentic on there. Yes, it's about fashion and cute dogs, and maybe your hubby shows up here and there, but you're authentic in that. And I really believe that what you've walked through has enabled you to be so real out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So good. Okay, so I have 2 questions for you before we say goodbye today. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So, Lauren was one of the first people to get the morning motivation journal, and I can't even tell you how excited I was to hand her one of those. So, Lauren, if you could give any type of review for the morning motivation journal, why people should purchase it in the shop today, what would it be?
Okay, so funny. I have it right in front of me, actually. I was like, wait, I have that. For me personally, every day, if I do not start with knowing what I'm gonna do today, I just get so off track. And I mean, that's very practical. Again, I'm kind of a type personality, to-do list, like give me the to-do list. That is what I need every day. And what I love though, about the morning motivation journal is that you're not just starting with your to-do list, because that doesn't take into account any other part of your life except just, oh, this is what I have to do today. Here's my list. And it doesn't take into account like the things, Jen, that you've included. The first thing is, what am I grateful for? Like, starting your day with gratitude changes your perspective.
Yes.
It 100% does.
Yes.
And then I love that the next thing is, what are my priorities for the day? I mean, it's not just about here's what I need to do. It's what's important to me. What's important to me today to focus on.
Yeah.
And just, the last 3 things I appreciate about myself, ways I will nourish my body today, and then my big audacious goal I'm focused on. Those things are taking time to self-reflect and say, I do appreciate myself. I'm going to take care of myself today. And I'm working on something bigger than maybe just if I would have just written down my to-do list. It just gives so much more perspective. And I think to start the day that way is just so refreshing and just gets your mind right for the day.
Hot dang, girl. Yes, please.
Dang,
I know,
yes.
like, that was I couldn't do an ad that could beat that. That's amazing. I love how much it speaks to you. And I know you're doing all the things, like, you do all the things. So I love that you're finding purpose in that. So good. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to remind everyone, go into the show notes, head to the shop, and purchase yours because they're amazing. They just are. All right, Lauren, I have one more question.
Okay. Think I'm ready.
This is my favorite one to ask anyone I hang out with on the podcast. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, this is easy. This is an easy one for me. I said it was easy, and now I'm debating between 2. Shoot. I would choose either flying or teleportation, because I feel like teleporting's faster, but flying, I mean, that's just cool. Like, think about all the things that you could see and do. Okay, done. I pick flying. Done.
I love that both of them, though, want to get you somewhere faster. Like, let's be honest. You just want to get there faster. Those are so good. I like the idea of flying as well. I like how you broke that down. Like, you really had to dissect that for a minute.
I did. Just tell you how my brain works. Did that just show you a little something? I think it did.
I think it did. It's so good. All right. if you want to follow Lauren, I'm going to link up her social media down below. She has an amazing blog. I mean, Instagram is one thing, and I love, it's like this highlight reel of what do I want to wear today? What could I put together? And she always has great ideas, whether it's home or, your personal fashion. But her blog takes it to another level. So I'm going to link the blog below as well. Y'all, I have purchased things Lauren has recommended, and every single purchase has been amazing. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I seriously could hang out and talk to you forever.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for having me. This was fun.
It's always fun hanging out together. Let's do it again soon.
Let's do it.
Hey, ladies, if you've ever struggled with thoughts about your body, thoughts about, am I eating enough, the right foods? I don't even know what healthy is anymore. I want to invite you into a private consultation with me. Yes, I'm your podcast host, but I'm also a certified health coach, a certified life coach, and I specialize in intuitive eating. I would love to talk more about where you are in your health, what your desires and goals are for it, and find out if working together is the best step for you. All you have to do is go into the show notes, click book a consultation, pick the time and date that works for you, answer a few questions to apply, and the rest is up to me. I'll give you that call. We'll talk. It's all about you and meeting you exactly where you are. I look forward to talking.